Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Too Many Men. My name is Alison Lucan. I'm very uncomfortable with the Zoom on my computer today, but here we are. It's another episode, another day, another drama. I feel like that's a lyric somewhere and I just can't place it because I'm exhausted. But I am delighted to be joined by the effervescent, the gorgeous, the about to be newly coiffed. This might be the last time we see her looking this way. The Civ Report's excellent journalist, Sara Sivian. How the hell are you?
It's that song's Look What You Made Me Do. The world goes on
Fuck.
another day, another
Thank
drama,
you.
drama, but
That's
not for me.
embarrassing. I should have my Taylor Swift card revoked. That's how tired I am.
No, it's like your Taylor Swift card is microchipped in you because you knew it from somewhere
That's better. Let's go with
deep
that.
inside.
That's good. That's good. How are you, Sara?
I'm good. Yep, about to get my hair done on Saturday. So that'll be exciting. But other than that, chilling.
And of course, we've talked about this before, but here she is. I always want her to go off mute because I like her little reactions better when she's not on mute. It is the creative, the keep watching for the upcycle products, folks. The athletics, brilliant. Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi. Sorry, I wanted to tweet out a story and I didn't want you guys to hear my obnoxious clicking.
If we've learned anything from recording this podcast, it's that ancillary noise, even when we try and create it, doesn't come through on the recording. So,
I feel like my keyboard I am a slam your hands on a keyboard kind of person, and I have a clicky keyboard that I'm like, oh, this is obnoxious off the bat.
okay, if you're, I see, I don't sit next to you when you type, and that we're gonna have to talk about that because I have very strong feelings about aggressive
Well,
typers.
I'm not on a laptop. I feel like I'm a quiet but fast, but on a keyboard, I feel like I'm like hammering away. I can't help it. I
Okay.
have a lot of thoughts that they have to explode out of my brain as quickly as possible or they're gone.
This podcast summed up in
I was
10
gonna
seconds.
exactly. Well, speaking of thoughts exploding, Sara, what time is it?
Time for Bito News.
Still need your address. Friendly
Yeah,
reminder.
this time for real.
All right, you guys, usually we wade into things. We have no time for that. We have no time because we're very concerned about the province of British Columbia. The city of Vancouver may actually be imploding in a massive, huge news bomb reported by Gary Mason yesterday morning, who sat down with Jim Rutherford. And what's amazing about this is Gary Mason is not even a sports journalist. He like reports on
He's
like
not?
no, he like
Oh my
reports on
God.
like real world things from what I understand. But that's what I was told. I could be completely wrong. But he sat down with Canucks president Jim Rutherford, who basically confirmed that the drama is real. Elias Pettersson and JT Miller cannot get along, and one or both of them has to be moved. The only priority is to keep Quinn Hughes. Canucks Nation is destroying itself. Everyone's upset. There are multiple reasons. They're mad at the players who vehemently denied that there was anything going on. They're mad at the fact that people can't get along in the locker room. They're mad that is this Rutherford signaling that a rebuild is about to come together. They're mad that they might lose Quinn Hughes, the only thing that seems to be going good besides Kevin Lankinen, who they picked up for pennies. And now if they do want to keep him, he's going to cost them an arm and a leg. Maybe they can cut off Thatcher Demko's. Who's to say? But Sara, of all of the drama, what storyline compels you the most?
I think the fact that we saw, I think the side plot of Brad Marchand, that he just came in and he was like this straight man in a comedy. You know what that like not straight man, not gay, straight man, like the one that's shows you how ridiculous the rest of the scenario is. And he just said exactly what needed to be said to shut down any type of drama, posted on Instagram as a joke. But it's like you can tell JT Miller is extremely pissed off. And I guess people had heard them yelling at each other during practice or whatever it is. It's just, I think that part and the part of the media as the evil people when they're barely even asking questions, like if this were Toronto media, it'd be even different. I don't know why people are acting like they're asking the hardest, most insane questions in the world when the situation itself is ridiculous. And it's really mismanaged by the PR, where the PR could either tell them what to say, tell them be like aware of the situation more. And maybe it's the coach of it all that he kind of doesn't want to come back and that everything's getting out. And the way that information has been leaked to me when it comes to Vancouver has been part of a result of this non-cohesion of it all.
Let's all just remind the people that Sara Civian was the first person to be correct about the Thatcher Demko news last May, was vilified for it, and was still 1000% correct. But onward we go. Okay, let's break this down. Shayna, what's your biggest takeaway from the mess?
This organization can't get out of their own way. And do we love it for the content? Yes. But it's ridiculous because go back a couple seasons ago, right before that Miller extension kicked in, and the Canucks were exploring trade options for JT Miller. I know I personally got yelled at that, being told there's no way that's happening. Like it was happening. And then weeks later, it's like, oh yeah, the Canucks did contemplate moving him before his no movement clause kicked in. They chose JT Miller over Bo Horvat. And now they're in this situation again. And it's like, are you going to choose nobody now? The way information is getting out is just the biggest problem, I feel like, because say they wanted the players to settle things themselves, right? Because that's what it sounds like. Then maybe that should have just been like prefaced from the beginning because this information's getting out and denying it doesn't help. Then speaking to the media, having two interviews in one day doesn't help. And he's like, well, this is what I'm saying is not going to like Rutherford, I think he's saying like what I'm saying is not going to change the situation or hurt our returns. Like the franchise looks as unstable as ever. Like this is the same team that it was out there that Bruce Boudreau was going to get fired before he even did get fired. Like, how do you keep making the same mistakes again and again and again? Where is PR in all of this? Does Rutherford just not care about PR and it doesn't matter? Like, this entire thing is such a shitstorm, and kind of compare it to the Canes right now and how quiet they were. A nerd, Eric Tulsky, sleuthing around to get the best player that could potentially be available on the market and playing Vancouver in the process. There's a way, there's like something to be like being quietly effective in this league, and the Canucks are just not that.
When I was covering the Canes, part of the quiet effectiveness, it was so much on knowing that a few people in the front office would give me information after the news broke that helped me write a good, respectable story about things where I could like suss out fact and fiction and explain things to the fans. Like we had a really good, in some ways, symbiotic role, like relationship in that way, where it's like it just seems the independent media in Vancouver is so disconnected from that, and they get kind of information from the league or from PR. The PR is kind of incorrect about it, and that really will fuck up your relationship with a reporter, where they kind of aren't incentivized to write the full good story because they aren't even being told it. So it's just kind of, it's a whole mess where you kind of allow a team to operate more quietly when you know you're going to get the full story after, and you're going to get some details that you can put in and make like a good story about that's genuine. You know what I mean? And you'll get some of the juicy details, and you don't get that in Vancouver. So you just get people kind of not having the team side of the story, which makes the team look worse.
Because they're so worried about leaks. They're
Yeah,
so like, right?
I have
And
a
then
hot
it's
take,
pouring
though.
out.
I have a hot
Let's
take.
hear it.
I like that Jim Rutherford did that interview.
I love
think it
him.
was
He's always
good.
going to be that guy. He has
I-
been that guy. He would tell Josh Yohe anything that he saw on a rock on the ground that day in Pittsburgh. You got to know that's who your president of hockey ops is.
No, I like that he did the interview, and I put this out on Twitter yesterday. My take is that I think everything kind of comes in cycles, right? And someone when I put this out yesterday was like, "Oh yeah, see the Rangers started it. The Rangers GM is psychotic, so that doesn't count." But after you see a trade like Mikko Rantanen, which kind of like shakes the foundation of we would never see something like that happen, I think this is Jim Rutherford basically saying, "No guys, we're serious. Like we need to change something here, so let's like." He's basically saying someone make a trade for one of these guys. Even if you thought we weren't serious, we are legit serious. I think this is him laying down the gauntlet. And I think this is him trying to basically say, yeah, it's all true. I kind of liked it.
And it's been back-to-back weekends of a near miss when it comes to trades for this team, and they're like franchise altering players. So at a certain point, your cards are on the table and people know what you're doing. You might as well say, hey, it's like me every month. I'm a freelancer, like hire me.
I feel like the timing's killing me though, because I'm like, you look at the Canucks and they just can't play consistent hockey, and then they play a good Saturday game again. They love Saturday nights, and then they actually have two good wins strung together. And it's like, I feel like I wish I saw this while the team was bad. Just like, listen, we know shit sucks. Here we go. Instead of like trying to like ride any goodwill, but I guess they're making it clear like we don't care that we won two games. Like this is the vision. I just, it's
Well,
everything.
and
Yeah.
JT Miller played well, right? So again, they haven't put two wins together since what was it, like January 3rd or something like that? Like maybe this is him saying, I'm literally trying to strike at the smallest little bit of warmth on the iron. Like I can't even say the iron is hot, but like maybe someone thinks JT Miller is good now. So please, someone, let's make a trade.
The iron has been
This,
left on overnight and you can still cook an egg on it if you must. And I also think a part of it is Quinn Hughes is pissed. Like
Oh, yeah,
that's what
he
I've
should
heard
be.
from people, of course. Like obviously, like Captain Obvious, that's my sources saying this guy's pissed. Look at the he has to play in his first year of captaincy. He's like the only competent person on the team right now
literally.
in multiple ways. But he's pissed. And yeah, you got to keep one person of 5 million happy.
So, okay, so we've talked about the GM of it all and the front office of it all. Let's go to the player side of it because I've been part of some interesting conversations. Let's start first to your point, Sarah, with the media relations. And I know I've been in these shoes where a player, you're talking to them and they're like, this is absolutely incorrect. And how dare you? And then like years later, they're like, no, actually, you were correct. That was 100% true. But part of the problem here, I think that we're dealing with now is that both Pedersen and Miller originally came out to the press and they were like, this is not true. There is no rift. And not only did they say that, but they were pretty condescending in their interviews. JT was like, what do you want me to do? Bring both of us out here right now? And Pedersen was like, cursing at the media. Not a lot if you haven't heard the interview, but he was cursing at the media. Meanwhile, Quinn Hughes and Rick Tocchet are kind of hinting at like, yeah, basically this is a thing. So how like I hate it when players can refuse to answer a question, but when they so aggressively deny it and it turns out to be true, that really frustrates me.
Yeah, and you know what? This is something I've always respected about the Bruins and Brad Marchand. To go back to that, when he was going on his rampage, he's like, I understand that this is kind of the name of the game, speculation, but you can't do this. And like, they really have let things go that maybe other teams have. And I don't know. And I think it's just like a lack of it's the way we have to report things now, what gets picked up, what gets aggregated, where they take words out and it's like, oh, this is definitely a report when it's not speculation. It's stuff like that. We have to be extra careful with what we're saying, but also the players don't have to like they can lie. That's allowed. Their job is to like go to work and kind of defend and get a good contract. And GMs have lied to me. Don Waddell has lied to me multiple times. And it's just like he said, sorry, I'm protecting my
Right.
player, like triple source here, whatever. And I think, I mean, whatever. It's just, I don't know where I'm going with this. I wish the audience kind of could read between the lines more. They used to be able to. And now it feels like with everything working against you on Twitter, on any type of social media, on aggregation, whatever, the world has changed so much. And it's kind of like people are less on the reporter's side and people are not like people take things at face value. I don't know if you guys are following the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively thing. It is kind of
Regretfully,
like
yes.
people taking whatever at face value, then information comes out. Then it's like, oh, we're picking a side today. What if you didn't have to pick a side? What if you could notice that there were interests and mistakes made on both sides about different things? That's just kind of how I feel. And I know that I think this goes back to let's do Occam's razor and let's see who is financially invested and who's doing a good job and a bad job. I think this is something in other front offices that has been secretly handled. There have been rifts in the past between players in the Hurricanes that I've covered that you could see things bubbling in retrospect. Like, oh, that guy who's playing this team really hates these guys. And there were things that happened that almost got out of the locker room, but then the guy got traded before. And you had to have done this way before because this has been happening with these two players for years, it seems. So it got to a point, and you had to have done something before you signed them both to new contracts.
We can hold two truths. Two things can be true at the same time. And so, Shayna, let's go into that because now what's starting to come out, and you mentioned it, they signed both of these players to extensions in recent history. There's been a lot of conversation about, and Rutherford came out and basically said a lot of people have been trying to fix this for some time. And there's kind of been insinuation that this has been bubbling, 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 and it gets squashed, and then it comes back up, and it gets squashed, and then it comes back up. And some people have reports of Halford and Bruff had some reports of some specifics they think it is, of PD not coming into camp in shape this year, and this and that and the other thing. But I've also seen a lot of people being like, get over it. And whether this is right or wrong, prior to coming into sports, I did leave a prior job in part because one of my bosses refused to have a good relationship with me, and it was toxic, and it made it awful to go to work every day. And it wasn't because other people didn't want to fix it. It sucked. So I kind of have some empathy for the fact that everyone's like, just get along, just get along. Like sometimes it can be that bad. What do you make of what we think we know about how long this is bad? And is it not okay is not the right word, but is it real that there can be such a toxic relationship between two players that regardless of how good they are on the ice, you have to move one or both?
Yeah, yeah, it happens all the time. I'm sure. Like there are rifts. Teammates are not necessarily best friends because they play together. Should it be to a point where they can't be on the same power play unit? No, it really shouldn't. And you could look at it and say they need to figure it out. When you're signed to such massive contracts and you're brought in to be a part of the core, if you're higher up or a coach, and I like this is a thing too, because it's like I feel like they want the players to figure this out themselves. A lot of it is, and I think it's spiraled beyond a point where someone else can step in and fix it, right? And I do wonder if someone higher up could have kind of mediated this sooner. They don't have to be friends, but they can work together because there is an onus on a player that makes 11.6 million or makes 9 million to suck it up and do their job. And I understand that. If it gets to a point where you can't, then management has to fix it before it gets to this point. Um, because you see like Quinn Hughes, sorry, you mentioned it, how well he's playing through all of this. He's playing at an MVP level and shutting out the noise. Obviously, he's not the one directly in the mix like Miller and Pedersen are, but he's dealing with it, and he's dealing with the media too, and he's still able to play through it. Not everybody can do that, and that's okay. But I do understand the organization wanting these players to find not even a middle ground, just enough that you can shut up and play. Because you didn't hear these problems as much last year when the team was playing well. And when you win, it solves a lot of issues. But I don't have an issue even with the team saying this situation's bad and we have to move on from one of them, right? Because I think there's a very obvious answer to that. You hear a lot like, no, but Miller has a lot of feelings and he's emotional in a good way and he's the energizer that they need. You trade Pedersen and you look at it and go, well, then you're crazy, right? Because elite first line centers, which he has the ceiling to be, they don't
He
grow on
hasn't been
trees.
elite. That's part of the problem.
That's
He
part of the
hasn't been
issue,
elite.
right?
Totally.
Right. So you have to balance that too, because you're saying, okay, but they don't, but he's not paying up to his big salary in the very beginning of it. So it convolutes the situation like even further. But it's like, if I'm the Canucks, I would want to move the weaker player in this situation, which to me is Miller when you think about the fact that he's going to be 32 soon, that there are a lot of two-way holes in his game, that there's always been that inconsistency, right? And see where things lie then. And then you can like go from there and go, okay, it still isn't working out with Pedersen, but to just blow up the team in one shot, like how bad is the situation that you have to do that? And that's why like this whole thing with like JR speaking, I just want to know like where Alvin stands in all of this. Like he's the voice I want to hear because I feel like him and Rutherford are so totally opposite that it brings even more curiosity to me. But I think you can say like, no, a toxic locker room can't contend, right? And we've seen it before. Do you guys remember like a million years ago with the Flames when they started taking trains to games to and they were like dressing up like Peaky Blinders to try to get everybody to like get along and they did things and it was like very out there. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
don't know what measures they've taken, but like we're never gonna know, and the players are very clearly never gonna speak on that.
Listen,
It
a
has
toxic locker room swept the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2019 playoffs when Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky, like the Blue Jackets had to have a big meeting in Edmonton because shit was so bad. So it can happen. Go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry.
be Russian, the step one. Step two, in 2006, I always think about this story where it's so fun to write a story of like former cup winners because they can really say whatever they want about the team or whatever. And it was just kind of like Peter Laviolette would force, I mean, I guess there's not, you can't do that with these kids these days anymore in New York. But Peter Laviolette would like force them to have these poker nights, and they're just like, "What the fuck, bro? Like, I want to hang out with my family. I don't want to like be drinking beers with my boss, whatever." And it ended up being just kind of the best thing for them. And then they were the most competitive. I see the JT Miller of it all, and like wanting to be competitive and wanting to drive your team or whatever. But you, you have to like each other before you're doing that, and you have to want to be in the competition. So I can see the frustration between two players that have really different competition mindsets. And then you have like a coach who's new to the team walking into what has already been a locker room mess. That's really tough. But then it's literally on management to not re-sign both of them and to trade one of them quietly. And then you come back and it's like, all right, everything's fine.
Yeah, and
But
I
you
think
go now, everybody knows going into this locker room that it's like going to be tense or weird.
And I think too, I want to go back to it because I said that about the Blue Jackets, and it was reported that there was a meeting called by leadership being Torts and, of course, the captain, Nick Foligno, that kind of put everyone on track. I think, Sarah, you're hitting on really the exact problem here is that we can't expect everyone to always fix it. Sometimes things can't be fixed, but they should have realized it couldn't have been fixed by this group earlier and made the moves before it got this toxic. It's not to say that someone should have had to been able to fix it. Sometimes you can't, but now they've let it linger too long. So let's wrap this up because I'm sure we're going to keep talking about this until something happens. I ask you a simple question, no explanation needed. Shayna, you'll go first. Do you trade one? And if so, which one or both? Because there's a
One.
theory out there that even if you trade just one, the people in the room who are left who supported the one who's traded are going to not be able to be productive because now it's going to be hurt feelings and we're in Mean Girls, the sequel. Go ahead, Shayna. One.
Start with one.
Okay. Which
Don't
one?
tear.
No,
It's
no
Miller.
explanation. Okay.
Just
So you,
start with one. Trade the older player, trade Miller.
okay. Sarah, one or both? And if so, which one if it's one?
One,
And it's
whoever, Miller. I just can't see Pedersen getting like the return that he probably deserves right now. It's low, selling low. You see Natchez' return right now when he's like finally playing elite, not finally, but like that was such a perfect example of when to trade a player. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if he figures it out on the ice, right? Like you could trade Pedersen for a haul. If he could just figure it out on
Yeah,
the ice, forget the locker room being
yeah,
toxic, just pretend it's not and don't fucking talk to the media about it for 5 minutes. You
yeah.
can go into the summer when everyone has more cap space and make a deal happen.
Or talk to the media. Here's what happened. We're moving on. We want to
Yes.
win a
Own
fucking
the
hockey
narrative.
game.
Yep. Own the
Own the
Yeah.
narrative.
narrative instead of
Yes.
letting things just sneak out and create a bigger shitstorm.
100%.
Insane.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm sure we'll keep talking about this. Let's move on. There is actually other things happening in hockey. You
Who
wouldn't
knew?
know it. And shockingly, well, we'll get to that in a second. All right. Speaking of trades that did work out on both ends, there was a trade earlier this year. Will Borgen going to the New York Rangers in exchange for Capo Caco going to the Seattle Kraken. Kako, I do believe as of last night, has the most points of any player acquired by a new team in this season. I could be wrong on that, mid-season trades, such and so forth. But Will Borgen, it was announced, signed a 5-year contract extension with the Rangers for 4.1 AAV. Shayna, just quickly, do we like this extension for the Rangers?
The term is the one part that I don't love. I think it's risky to go that long term with anyone that's not your like true top, I don't know, maybe 3 guys, but I understand it because I think it's pretty well established that Ryan Lindgren probably won't extend there at this point. So they need some sort of stability. But I think the big key to it all, literally the key, is that he's helped K'Andre Miller stabilize his game. After he struggled through the beginning of the year, he was really good with Adam Fox. He was really bad with Trouba. And even iffy with Schneider, who he was good with last year. If they found someone to like stabilize at second pair and they go, this is a good fit, he's quietly effective, there's nothing wrong with that.
Very good. Let's go to some other contract news. A player who wasn't traded but was extended, Sara, is Logan Thompson, who was traded literally at the draft from Vegas to Washington, has been absolutely stellar for the Capitals in net and a big part of the reason why they are one of the best teams in the NHL this season. It was announced he signs a 6-year extension for just under 6 million per. It raises questions about the other Lindgren brother, but we're not here to talk about that. Do you like this extension for the Caps and for the player?
Yeah, love that. I really do feel like there's something about, Shayna, I'd love to see an article from you on this about players taking not hometown deals, but kind of less than maybe they command on the open market when they're feeling really good, when a team just like easily agrees to this and gets it done. And they're on a team they want to stay on that they're winning on, and it might be kind of their one of their first opportunities with winning or whatever it is. I think with the cap rising and with the goalie deals we're seeing, it is probably a bit of an underpay, but I also understand the usage and the experience he needs to gain, and kind of he came out of nowhere proving himself, whatever. It's just the perfect position too. But I really just could, the vibes could not be better in Washington, or at least at Capital One Arena.
Where they should stay and where they are going to stay. And Sara and Shayna and I
Yes.
support that 1,000,000%. All right. Another player movement that is maybe going in the wrong direction, depending on how you ask, is that in an interesting turn of events, if you've been following, and this is so many players, I mean, everyone's career ultimately ends, right? So Brandon Saad is on waivers. I believe he had a full no trade, and he has one more year at 4.5 million. The actual cash there is 3.6. Shayna, many of us can remember the heyday of Brandon Saad when he was the key piece of multiple trades, including the fact that Chicago thought they couldn't live without him and just sent little old Artemi Panarin to Columbus. Who knew?
Who made that trade? Can I ask you?
Jarmo Kekalainen.
No, no, other way around. Who
Oh, I
traded
forget.
Panarin for Saad to bring him back to Chicago?
I forget. Tell me.
Bowman,
Oh, there you go.
running everyone's favorite team, the Edmonton Oilers, and good luck with that. Why is it that everyone has questions about Bowman? I don't know.
So Brandon Saad, Shayna, on
Brandon
waivers.
Saad.
Is he cooked? Is he done?
I mean, listen, in 20 minutes, if we're still recording, we'll be able to let you know if he cleared waivers or not. I can't see anyone picking up this contract. I think the Blues have to do this. I think that the problem is like the Blues want to get better, and I like after years of signing horrible, clunky contracts, they're like, okay, wait, we should go after younger NHL caliber players like Broberg, like Holloway, and take bold swings. And I think this year, the way the trade market's already shaping up, if you're a team you want to have cap space to weaponize, you don't necessarily want to wait till the summer. You want to get that early jump on it, so you need to do whatever you can to clear space. It's not going to clear a ton, but here's something. At least they're acknowledging like this isn't working. But I don't know how you sell anybody on taking that contract.
Yeah, it's rough. All right, let's move on to some injury news that we have going on around the league. And Sara, I'll have you talk first on Kirill Kaprizov. This is a player who had been out, came back, but now is out for an expected 6 weeks getting surgery. It sounds like the organization wanted to factor in the Four Nations break there in line with his recovery time to minimize as much as they could the amount of hockey he'll miss. The Wild have been hanging around, but obviously not as potent without the dynamic Kirill the Thrill. What do you make of this news, and how will it affect the Wild, do you think, wanting to make the playoffs this season?
Yeah, it absolutely sucks. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. They've just been so, the injury bug has got them in like the worst ways. And it feels like that happens to them year after year. But the difference now is that their younger guys have taken steps forward, and they can kind of pick up more of the slack to some degree. And of course, the difference now is goaltending. So I think they're going to hang on and be fine. I mean, it's unfortunate as hell that Kaprizov has um, taken an injury this severe, but he'll be back before the playoffs, I think. So that's a good thing. I really want to see him shine in the playoffs. And I think it might work out in the favor where, all right, you got management maybe wanting to make a trade and like make and adding to the team
With all
if
their
you
cap
can.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, with all the cap space. Well, they're gonna have to do something. I was thinking maybe Granlund, but like run that back. But San Jose has kind of used up all their retention, so that's gonna suck, and that's not gonna really be possible for them.
Shayna, another injury that hit the league last night, and as we record, I don't know that we have an official update. This is one of those I saw it hit Twitter first because I was obviously working a game, and then luckily happened to see a replay, which I immediately covered my eyes and turned away because it did not look good. But that's Miro Heiskanen, however you want to pronounce it. Who cares? Here he is. He's hurt. A knee-on-knee hit that did not look good at all from Mark Stone. It was called a trip. Shane, I don't know if you were able to see this live, but what was your take and how significant will it be if the D-man is out for Dallas for any extended period of time?
Yeah, I did see it live. I like, listen, Vegas and Dallas are playing. That is like you're planted watching that game. That it's a matchup that always delivers. But I don't love it. And I know it's like, well, Hinch tripped him, which is true. When you watch the replay over and over and over again, his stick looks like trips Stone. But I don't understand why he's still lunging there. And I don't think Mark Stone's a dirty player. I don't think that he intended to hurt Heiskanen, but like you did. And I think he's a much smarter player who's very good on his skates to not do that even if he's getting tripped. Like I don't know. I really didn't like it. So I hope Haskinen's okay. Sean Shapiro wrote a really good story on it, talking about the injury, the situation, and kind of like how the Stars have really struggled without. He's like their stabilizing force, right? Through any other injuries, they manage it. And you look at it this year with Sagan and Marchment when their second line was stepping up for their first line for so long. But Haskinen's that guy that is like always the two-way support that they need, even if it's a little bit quieter. I know last year at one point when he was out, Thomas Harley really stepped up and from there became a top pair defenseman and started playing with Heiskanen. So maybe he can step up again. But as a whole, I think the Stars blue line is a lot worse this year than last year. I have some questions if they can manage if he's out for any extended period of time, which ideally he isn't. It kind of works in the Stars' favor that Minnesota is going through their own shit right now and that Philip Gustafson's not playing as well because I think it's going to help their standing. But it's this is going to be a tough one to navigate if it's any extended period of time.
Absolutely. We'll watch and we'll see what that news comes out. Other little quick tidbits we'll just share with y'all if you didn't see him. Drew Doughty expected to come back for LA tonight, and Nico Hischier is expected to be out week to week, which brings us to our last bit of news, and we had to know this was coming. But Four Nations face-off, baby. The rosters are starting to change, and I don't mean to make light of any injury, but we do know that Alex Pietrangelo, interestingly, put out that he will not be playing in the tournament and then conveniently plays for Vegas the exact same day that he puts that announcement out. On the flip side, a little less happy, Jacob Markstrom, who was injured last week, is out for Four Nations, and it was officially announced today that the Flyers' Urson will now be in net on that roster. Greg Wyshynski, friend of the pod, has reported that unlike the All-Star game, there will be no penalty for missing the Four Nations face-off. But Sara, let's go to you first. What do you make of these rosters now starting to get a little questionable in some spots? And do you expect more players who are on playoff teams, Austin Matthews, I'm looking at you, to consider or have management consider not playing in this tournament?
I mean, I think it was destined to happen at a certain point as we're inching towards the date, right? And of course, it's like I feel like maybe for Team Canada and for somebody like Austin Matthews, you don't sit it out because it kind of, especially after like you're kind of, or I mean, he's American. Oh my goodness. I'm thinking in how does
It's
this
okay. He
affect the Leafs?
plays in
That's
Toronto.
why, that's why fucking Leafs fans don't want him to go because he's American. Oh my God. Oh my
The
God. I'm
call
like,
is coming
We've
from
had
inside
what?
the house.
we have
Yeah,
had
okay.
tinfoil hats on for weeks now, but this might be the best, most passionate reason to have one.
Now it's all making sense. But I think Austin Matthews is proud to be an American. I think he's going to do it. But I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know. Like, it's the first of its kind of. I need to see how the tournament goes to see how I really feel about it. But it's kind of like your friend calls you and is like, who's all going to this party? And you're like, I don't know, let's see if it's fun. And it's like, it is kind of what you make it, but none of our crazy Russian friends are coming. So that kind of sucks. So
None of our fun
no,
European friends
yeah,
besides the Swedes and the Finns. Like all the
Dusty
Czechs are out
Leon
of
is
it.
left at home. What are we doing?
Pasta can't
exactly.
go.
I think everybody knows it's not the Olympics, but maybe it was kind of like a wink and nod. Like, if you guys take this seriously, then like we're gonna do our best to get you into the Olympics. So I
Right.
think people are, but I also there's gonna be the Alex Petrangelos of it all.
Shayna, do you expect a lot more roster shakeup, or do you think it's just going to be maybe one or two here and there, and most of the guys are going to want to go and play?
I think it's going to be maybe one or two here and there. Like Matthews was one that would have made sense given like his injury status, throughout the year, honestly. And even like Chris Kreider, I think would have been a question mark. He ended up missing time and seems to be like hitting his stride again. So I don't think that's as much of an issue. But like the Pietrangelo situation is such an interesting one because it's like, well, you're healthy enough to play 25 minutes a night for Vegas, but I would understand why it's like this is an exhibition basically. Why would you play through that? And if I'm the Golden Knights, if any team's giving me pushback, I would be like, would you rather him take a couple days off here or go on LTIR? Because we could play this both ways. So it's like if any other team was doing it, it's a different conversation. But if you can avoid those loopholes again, which Vegas has obviously exploited to their heart's content over the years, which is well within their rights to do, it's definitely an interesting one. But I guess there's varying levels of health in the NHL. And I like try to keep that in mind too. Like, are you healthy enough to play a regular season game? Are you healthy enough to play game one of the postseason? Those are two totally different things. Whether or not you're healthy enough to be effective, now that's like another curveball. So I understand something like this being like, why risk it if there's something he should heal up for? I think this break is coming at a very good time for players like him, Markstrom, Heishier, so the Devils don't miss key players for as long. But ideally you don't see a million players pull out and just go, you know what, fuck this, because I think then you'll see the penalties come into play and then it's like you lose the fun of it all.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
penalties in the future, not suddenly instilled here, I should say.
All right, we move on because we have one quick little thing we must address. Shayna, what is our next segment?
Oh, I didn't even know. How does it affect the Leafs? So we've already gone there.
Listen,
Unofficially, we went there.
we
Officially,
did.
we're
We
here.
did. Officially, we're here because Elliot Friedman, if you're a fan of the podcast, why don't you just tell us and own it? On Saturday, Elliot Friedman co-opted our signature tagline of what, Shayna?
How does it affect the Leafs?
So you can get your merch, Elliot, toomanymenmerch.com. We've got how does this affect the Leafs merch? Shayna or Sarah, anything to add?
Yeah, just give us credit, man. I mean, I know it's hard to like not let everything affect the Leafs. We all feel it in our bones, but we're the ones essentially unofficially trademarking it. Like this is ours. This is our bit.
Sarah, any
We're
thoughts?
CEOs of affecting the Leaves. I even financed an entire show that I now host about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we manifested the Leafs being affected.
So there you go. If you want to see the clip, it's on our socials. Enjoy that for you. All right, let's move on to hockey talk. We talked about the big drama going on in Vancouver last week, and so much so that we had to have an emergency pod. And Sarah put out her thoughts, which we linked in the show notes in her article about the Mikko Rantanen trade. We're starting to see the ripples of these players getting more and more comfortable with their teams. We have Taylor Hall with a primary assist. We have Rantanen with a primary assist. Necas and Drury are performing with the Avs. Drury was the first player of the four to get a goal with his new team, just as we all predicted. But Sarah, I'll start with you. Obviously, it's not the common occurrence that when a big trade like this happens, that someone goes to their new team and is immediately at peak performance. But have you liked what you've seen so far? Are you waiting to gather more information? Any concerns about the pieces playing well in their new homes?
Honestly, I have been watching a lot of Avs, and because Necas is one of my favorite players, and for years I was covering him, going to the AHL games and being like so excited to see him with more time and space. And he next to McKinnon is a work of art. Like he can keep up with McKinnon. He's as fast as McKinnon. And watching them enter the zone, it's like, no, he has 4 points in his two games. And Drury has two goals. That's fun. But I think it speaks to like the breadth of depth the Canes have had. And I want to see if Nate just gets a little more, I don't know. I just love that. And Rantanen, I did not watch the game. What was it, last night or the night before? I don't know. But I did see that he had an assist, and someone said it was like the perfect example of what he can provide to the team, which is kind of the extra effort finishing touch type skill that maybe another player would kind of just like, I don't know, it's too elite. This is why it's one of the best blockbusters in season of the past few years, or I don't know, for we can debate for how long, but past few years for me, it's like two potential 100 plus point getters, and now you get to see them in different elements, and they've both been kind of only playing on one team. So
Shayna, what do you think about the new pieces in new uniforms with different groups of guys around them?
Yeah, I think for the first game for Natchez, you saw like where he needs to adjust to a totally different system, right? Like there were definitely mistakes where he was putting the puck or where McKinnon would expect him to be on a play, like not driving enough to the middle of the ice. And that's normal, especially like the trade happened less than 24 hours ago. Like,
yeah, he's
Rome's
tired.
not built in a day. Let's relax. But I think the next two games, you could see him clicking so much more already. And you see that chemistry. And like if Natchez and McKinnon end up on the same line long term, like just the way like how our opponent's going to try to like strategize for their zone entries, like good luck because the both of them can just fly up the zone. Like it really you could see like this instant chemistry growing. I'm excited to see more for Hall and Rantanen already too. Like I watched both games so far that they played for the Canes because I know I'm writing about this yesterday. Fuck. Tomorrow. I'm writing tomorrow about this. Um, but it's like for Rantanen, I feel like he's exactly what they need. The Canes, like they're a really good team at creating a lot of shots, but they need more from the middle, and that is like his bread and butter at even strength. And you saw it with both his shot making and his passing last night, especially. And even with Taylor Hall. I do not want to hear any Taylor Hall slander. I've had enough of it. I need this is my Miko Rantanen of the day. I do not want to hear Taylor Hall slander.
Wait, did
I
we
know he's
manifest that this season with the Miko Rantanen? Sorry, keep going.
maybe we did.
Ooh, Sarah, what an excellent call. We saw it coming. We
Yeah.
didn't even know. We
We had no
knew.
idea.
We
We had
knew.
no idea. This is why you have to listen.
Listen,
We'll all
absolutely.
Yeah.
learn something. But like I saw so many people being like, Taylor Hall's washed. She's not good anymore. You weren't watching Chicago and you didn't know the durability. I don't want to hear any of that. The Blackhawks were so bad that it's going to drag down literally everyone around them. Like, that's just how it is. He was still a really good scoring chance generator there. You can already see with the Canes how like his puck movement last night against the Rangers. And yes, the Rangers are a flawed defensive team, but it's like that's what they need. And you could see instantly he's surrounded by better players, he's going to make more of an impact. Like this is a good player. He's really good in transition. He has been good with good teams before. It's so hard to judge a player when they're in such shit surroundings because you don't know if the environment is the cause for it, if the player's declining with the team around him. But I just feel like we've seen him rebound when he goes elsewhere in other instances, which is why he was worth more in this trade. But that is my other Miko Rantanen. I don't know if we're getting there, but I think he's going to be such a good fit there. So I'm very excited to see that. And I'm excited to see him get the opportunity. And I feel really bad for Connor Bedard, left in Chicago.
Well, you teed it up perfectly, Shayna, because where we wanted to go was we talked about the players and what they're doing in new homes, but we can't
No
talk about
homes.
no homes, who's to say? But what we can't talk about is a draft pick in a new home because nothing's been done with it yet, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks. And listen, all of you Blackhawk fans who have come out and tried to defend this move, I get it. I understand it's hard sometimes, but we might have to get there. And Kyle Davidson did have a media availability. What was it, yesterday? Yes, 2 days ago. Time is a flat circle. Basically saying that they wanted to move Taylor Hall because they felt that they were running the risk of injury. His role was diminishing, and he didn't think, this is Kyle Davidson, he did not think, and I will quote this here, it just wasn't heading towards a way that was going to maximize or enhance values. And so in moving then, we moved at full price and held on the other player involved. It just didn't make sense to wait and not really get a better return later on. It was basically what we thought or hoped we would get, and so just move forward with it instead of risking all the things that just go along with just holding a player, and fingers crossed, maybe the value increases marginally a little bit down the stretch. I'm reading the reporting of I can never say his last name properly, Rumeliadis. I apologize. Please forgive me. Shayna, you said you had another rant. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I just think this was terrible asset management here. I know there's that risk of injury or the risk that the price doesn't go up, but you do not want to be the one setting the market price, especially when we see that kind of explode closer to the deadline. Like, look at what centers brought back in last year. Look at what other wingers have brought back in. And I think we talked about it on the emergency pod. Guys like Mantha and Tarasenko and Toffoli are bringing back multiple picks. Would you have had to retain salary to get those picks on Hall? Possibly. And now, but like that's what you do. You leverage your cap space to get something. It just feels like a total missed opportunity because they jumped too soon. If you're Chicago in this, you're the third team facilitating the trade. As I think Colorado's tweet very clearly said, they are facilitating the trade. So if you push for more, this deal is probably not breaking down because you say you want an extra, I don't know, third or fourth round pick to get a little bit more for, to squeeze all the juice that's there. Like that's what you should be doing. And if the deal does break down, it's not your fucking problem, right? You're not being difficult. You're doing your job, right? Like, and I know you have to build relationships here, but like it's your duty to first do your job for your own team, which is push for every single thing you can get for the player. So you're doing them a favor by not just sending Hall, but retaining Rantanen salary. You should be asking for more. If the deal breaks down, tough shit. There are so many teams that don't have retention slots that should, like Sarah mentioned, San Jose. I think Pittsburgh and Nashville are two teams with 2 out of 3 slots filled already. When those are the teams who are outside the playoff picture, most likely, and you would think could retain salary, right? Like there's a lot, there's a lot of moves to make this year. We're gonna see them over the next 2 weeks, and then we're gonna see them closer to the deadline. Like you want to see teams use and leverage their cap space properly. This just was not it.
Sarah, anything to add on the Taylor Hall of it all?
I totally agree. And I think, yeah, that those kind of retention spots are going to be the talk of the town now that we haven't really, we're like, oh, like a shiny new cap space. What are we going to use it up? And then nobody mentions that until it's like, I saw a Steve Dangle TikTok the other day that was like, nobody in any sports league is less clueless about what's going on than hockey people and hockey fans because there are so many weird little rules and the retention and nobody tells you until it's like, oh, fine, I'm the insider that's going to tell you. And for me, it's like Eric Tulski telling me what anything means. Like you have to look through and like figure it out. So it's really difficult, but just look out for retention spots. And yeah, I really have to think that there must have been some kind of like deal with the Hurricanes about like secret future considerations or something. I'm starting tampering discourse. That's not, I don't think it was tampering, but I do think that like Chicago's trying to rely on goodwill in the future of teams, like when they're going to be in the playoffs. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Ever. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's dramatic. I just look at them and I'm like, because they're gonna open up so much cap space, not open up. They have a ton of cap space, and they're a team that like they literally could go after Rantanen in free agency or Mitch Marner if he gets there. I get that, but like you have to bet on that player wanting to sign there, and I feel like you have to see some glimmer of hope that like you're eventually gonna turn things around. And also, when Taylor Hall is sitting here saying like, didn't wasn't it said like he didn't, he wanted to stay in Chicago and just like be there and vibe out, like, and then you move the player, it's like, well, you're not. There's even less goodwill. Like, I don't know.
Well, the drama continues in a league that is absolutely never about anything other than hockey. Let's wrap this episode up, my friends, with our very favorite game, and that is a game of fuck, marry, kill. And in light of our recent discourse today, Sarah, we are going to fuck, marry, kill potential trade destinations for Elias Pettersson. Are you ready
All
for
right.
your 3 options?
I am.
All right, here we go.
Oh, and let's note, we're literally throwing darts at 3
Yeah, we have
options
no,
because
yeah,
31 teams should be interested in Elias Pettersson.
Yeah. And they
great
will be.
point. I love the caveat. For once, we're actually trying to cover our asses on something we say.
Because people are like, look, they're saying these 3 teams. What are they on to?
We
We're
literally
just,
picked these
you want
3.
us to do this every week till he gets traded? We'll figure out 3 new teams every
Maybe
fucking
we
week.
will. And we'll go through all 32.
And we'll have a bracket, and like the Marys all
Yeah.
come together at the very end. Okay, here we go. Fuck, Mary, kill, Sarah, the randomly selected teams of the Buffalo Sabres, the Blue Jackets of Columbus, and the Utah Clubbers. The floor is yours.
Killing Utah. You got Clayton Keller. I think you need to focus on your goaltending and your defense. I am. I am. Oh, marrying the Blue Jackets. They deserve it. They got the space, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And I do think Pedersen could thrive there. I am going to fuck the Sabres. I don't want them to hurt him. It could work out.
Dana, go ahead.
I'm really torn on this. Okay. I only know one for sure, so I'm just gonna make it up as I go.
Okay, go.
I'm gonna marry Utah.
Ooh.
Okay.
I would like, okay, if I look at Utah, their biggest weakness to me is their center depth. I think Logan Cooley is a star, but behind that, I don't love it. So I would say trade someone to bring in a true top six center, and then you're gonna have Cooley and Pedersen. Like that would be a really good fit. I like that Utah wants to take this bold approach. We saw with the Mikhail Sergachev trade. They're willing to spend. If it means getting better, it's a completely different vibe for this franchise, and I think that's really exciting. So I'm all about it. And I think that they have pieces that would interest Vancouver because they have a ton of defensemen, and as they get healthier, they're going to have even more to potentially move. And if I'm Utah, I'm trying to move someone like Barrett Hayton, who I don't think has lived up to the potential that he has. And that gives you a center back to Vancouver, which they say they want, even if you can't get a number one or two guys, Rutherford said, and you just have to get someone to fill a role. So I feel like it could make a lot of sense. And I want to see them just go for these big swings to shake things up. I'm so stuck on this. Um, okay, hmm,
Hmm.
I'm gonna fuck the Blue Jackets because I do think that they make a lot of sense here. They have a ton of cap flexibility to work with, even when you look at the later years of, say, when Fantilli's LC expires, like the fact that they have Marchenko on such a good deal right now, I think that they can make it all click. And by the time they start worrying about those extensions and like huge raises, you're gonna have some bad contracts coming off the books. I think it adds reinforcements for the Monahan injury and the setback that he's had. And I think it's something good for a franchise that they're one of the best stories in the league right now, that they are going for the playoffs. They have done a lot to plan for their future. I think that they have players that they could move out that would interest the Canucks. I think they have a ton of draft picks and prospects that they could use to make a deal happen. And I just think it would help their chances now and in the future. I think it's one of those rare moves that like helps you long term. By process of elimination, I will kill the Sabres, even though I think that they have potential as a fit because I think it's a way for them to try to move the Dylan Cousins contract without losing the trade. But I simply like the other two better.
You have both made very compelling arguments. I did not have strong opinions until I listened to both of you. So, shoot. Okay, I'm going to fuck the CBJ because while I agree that like investing in them and showing them that they can get a nice centerpiece, this is not related to the current drama, but Elias Pettersson seems like he is a softer motivational person, and that is not bad or good. That's just his style. And I think the culture in the Columbus room is so strong right now. Like, you need to make sure Pedersen goes to a place that is the exact right landing space for him in terms of his headspace, as you should with any player. Let me be very clear. But I worry about the meshing there. Not because it wouldn't work. I just worry about the meshing process. I'm going to marry Buffalo just because I I just want them something good to happen there, right? And like maybe this is like the reverse Saber trade, right? Where they don't trade someone away and they get elite, they get someone elite instead. So it's like the reverse Eichel, maybe, potentially. Um,
One might call that the Jeff Skinner.
And look, he doesn't have no movement clause till July 1st. There's no concerns there of does he want to go there, does he not? You could just make it happen. Like this is your moment, Buffalo.
True, true.
and therefore, slash by process of elimination, slash by Sarah's argument of what Utah really needs, I will kill Utah. Those are my positions on the whole thing.
Cool.
All right, my friends, that will do it for us this week. Again, thank you, NHL, for storylines that have absolutely nothing to do with actual on ice performance. It's always delightful. We will continue to share updates with you and other insiders, co-opting our headlines as much as we can on the socials. Follow us there at 2_much_man on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us on Blue Sky at 2_much_man. And you can get your merch at toomanymenmerch.com. All the little things you could need. I've just ordered a bunch of it to put in our favorite things basket for the Seattle Kraken auction. So if you're here or want to watch for that online, you can. Until we speak again, though, no matter if you interact with us, buy merch or not, we don't care. We just want you to please do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Love you.
Bye.